So while I was getting therapy and trying to just find out the spiritual meaning of why I went through so much trauma, and reading about it and understanding, like, this memory came back to me where I remember being in this sort of like meeting room, essentially. And I do think I remember, like, there were screens, or it was like you could look out either onto the earth or you could see like life possibilities, things like that. But the meeting room was really crowded because I had the feeling like I came into this really excited soul group, that they had this really big, like, all of them had like a plan for what they wanted to do. And they needed somebody to handle the really hard part of it. And enter me. And I just remember feeling like I fell in love with this soul group. Like I don't know if they were exactly mine, or maybe I came separately into it and I was like, hey, I'll help you guys out. I'm not sure about that exactly 100%. But I just remember feeling like I can do this all. And I remember volunteering. So there's that whole like volunteering aspect of like I raised my hand and said, I'll go ahead and do this. And that was huge to know and to understand that I had that memory of doing it, because when you're coming from a lot of trauma, to understand why, the big why of why this happened to me, why am I going through this? That was a big moment and a big puzzle piece to put in there and be like, oh my gosh, I volunteered for this. What was I thinking? No, you know, exactly. So it definitely helped in my healing process to understand, like, oh, yeah, I had a hand in this. Literally, I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. So that was one of a big pre-birth memory that I had. And the second experience I had came after my spiritual awakening, which happened around 2006. It was after I left my strict religious church and was questioning life after death. And I found near-death experiences on nderf.org. You're probably familiar with that site. Tons of near-death experiences that you could just read all night, which is what I did.
Yes, me too.
And I felt like I was remembering things that I knew deep inside. And it was such a good resource. And so after I had this awakening, a lot of different things started happening. I started being contacted by ET groups, and I had a Kundalini, spontaneous awakening. I had a lot of things, cool things. And I go over all of these different things on my channel, so you can look at the specific different ones. But this pre-birth experience came back to me, and it happened in a dream that you really remember, you wake up from and you're just like, okay, I was aware of that. I was awake during it the whole time. So it was like this heavenly atmosphere. And I remember being just one of those little spiritual orbs, just being an orb, really. I had no body or anything. I was just like this little orb. And I was so childlike and curious and just no worries, just so curious, oh, I want to know what that's like and what that is like. And there was a guide there, and he was preparing another being for going down into Earth for an Earth life. And I was watching the process of this happening. And then I saw the guide help the individual go down, leave the veil and go down, almost into one of those wormhole tube things, down to Earth, and whoosh, there he went. And I was like, hey, I want to do that too. Just so nonchalant, that looks cool, let's do it, kind of thing. And the guy was like, okay. And so I'm not sure if this is actually I did have this other life that I'm remembering, or maybe I came along as an observer, or maybe I was just given a part of remembering this other life, because it ended and I don't remember the rest of the life. So I'll get into that a little bit. So the first thing I remember is that there was this veil, and it resembled a bubble dome over this kind of meeting area. And it was very etheric. And you know how a bubble has all the different colors? It had that, but it was like a thick like wall thing. Like it took energy to get through it, is what I would say. Like you didn't want to just, accidentally pop out of it and pop back in kind of thing. Like it was very intentional to leave this sort of barrier. So as I did, they were, I say they, guides or whatever, were preparing kind of like this vehicle. And it was, I guess you could say it was within that tunnel of like going down into earth or whatever, that little chute or whatever. So to me, in my mind, in this dream state, it kind of resembled like I'm getting into a roller coaster car kind of thing and ready to go down into the roller coaster of earth, earth life or whatever. But it was all very energetic looking. And so I got into this vehicle, and the guide was telling me that I have to spread my energy because, I'm used to being this little ball of consciousness. And now I needed to spread my energy into this vehicle, aka energetic body. That's essentially what it was. And I just remember it was really hard to like expand and to fit all the nook and crannies of like this energetic body. And it was hard to kind of like hold it like that. Like it was kind of a little bit energetically uncomfortable. And so after I was able to hold it, I guess to their specifications or whatever, I just remember going down for that ride. And then suddenly, the next memory I have is observing the mother that was going to be my mother, giving birth. And I even remember like physically what she looked like. She was actually just like a middle-aged Jewish woman, dark hair, very like thin, long face. And I could feel her pain through labor and also her joy. So she was excited, she's going to have me. And I was also a boy. So that was different. And then, so being able to feel all the emotions and like the physical pain, I think I actually felt her physical pain too, during that as well. And then the next thing I remember is it's like my 1-year-old birthday, and I'm in a high chair and I'm eating cake and everybody's celebrating. And then that's it. That it was like I woke up, and then I was worried. Like when I woke up, I'm like, what happened then? Did I pass after that and cause her a lot of grief? Like I was really concerned. Or was this just as far as I was given to remember? Because you don't want to mess up your current life with too much information, and then you get confused on who you are and whatnot. So that is really the gist of my pre-birth memories that I've had.
While I was in this space, I was taken through my pre-birth planning. I was shown that I, as a soul, had chosen my life before I ever had come to Earth. I chose my parents. I chose the family that I would be born into. I chose all of the adversity. I chose the partners that I would have my sexual, physical, and emotional traumas with. I chose the partners that I would be the in their lives. And I saw this moment as I, as a soul, made all of these decisions. And the way that it looked to me was like a video game. And so when I was picking all of these life experiences, I saw myself in a grocery store, and I had this empty cart, and there was a man. He was wearing a plaid blazer and a fedora, and he said, okay, pick your life. I thought, well, if I'm going to Earth, I'm going to Earth. And I started grabbing all of these. It looked like cereal boxes. And, like they all said stuff on them. And so I picked to be an addict. I picked all of this major adversity and hardship. And then there was things in the cart that I hadn't experienced yet. I had picked recovery and overcoming and triumph and, you know, all of these dreams and goals. But none of that had happened in my life yet. So I begged to stay in that space. And they told me that I was a spiritual soldier. I had volunteered to come to Earth to uplift the consciousness of the planet, and that I had to go back from my mission, and that the first half of my life was just boot camp. And so I was like, I'm okay. I'm not going to finish the mission. Like, I'm just going to stay here. And they told me, no, you have to go back. And I said, no, I'm not interested in doing that. And I sort of transformed into a small child. I was like stomping my fists and my feet on the ground. And I was like, I will not go back. You guys don't tell us what Earth is actually like. It's way too challenging. It's way too difficult. There's no way that I can do it. And then I had a thought and I said, well, I definitely cannot go back into her. And I could see myself outside myself. And they said, okay, you don't have to go back into her, but you do have to go back. And so we'll show you the baby that you'll be born into. And they showed me these 3 babies. And again, everything really looked like a video game to me. And then they showed me the stats of this one baby. And this would be the baby that I would be born into. And the stats that went along with this child, they showed me her gender, her ethnicity, where she would be born, her family line, her adversity. And her life was even more challenging than my own. And I already had such a challenging life full of so much stuff. And so I threw my hands up in the air and I said, okay, I can't start from zero. I'll go back into her. And I found myself back in my awareness. And like I said, I just wrote this off as drug-induced psychosis, like spirituality, thinking of the universe, the divine, the creator. None of this was part of my life. And so I just went about my life using and I just wrote it off. And then the universe stepped in and it made itself known in this very loud, tangible way so that I had no way of mistaking that this was a real experience. There was 2 messages that were very loud and clear while I was there. One was, you have to go back to Earth. The other was, you have to stop using drugs. This is time for your mission.
First of all, I want to say that I'm not here to promote reincarnation trap or soul trap. I'm just seeking the truth, and I don't want to scare anyone or anything like that. But I've been looking at NDEs, near-death experiences, for years and years, and it's very much the same thing that goes on, just a little bit different variations, I guess. You see the light usually, and you have a life review, and you see the bad things you've done and see the good things you've done. But you should feel some guilt about the things you could have done better. And you usually often are greeted by a light being or Jesus, very often Jesus, or a family member that's passed away long ago. But we have to keep in mind that there are many other stories that are a little bit different. Some go a little bit further and things are not quite as they seem. And we have to be open for the fact that these beings that we see, or Jesus, or a past family member, or this light being, they could be tricksters in disguise. This could be some Archons or whatever, reptilians, Greys, whatever it is that's there. Anyway, it seems pretty obvious that most people are going back into reincarnation. And we just have to keep an open mind that the people we see when we die in the light, they might not be who we think they are. They could be tricksters in disguise. And we should ask them to show us their true form, or who they really are. And no one should... we could be tricked by the light, as some say, and we should stay away from light altogether. I seriously advise people to check out Howdy Mikoski and his book Exit the Cave. It's really good. Anyway, be open for the fact and do some research for yourself. Pre-birth memories and NDEs and all that. I mean, people are pushed back from NDEs. Obviously, they wouldn't have been there otherwise. But yeah, they don't really have much control, and they're going to fulfill a soul contract. I will just look at some random NDEs, near-death experiences that I saw the other day. And a woman crossed over into the light, and she met Jesus. And she said, "I'm not going back to that place." And Jesus said to her that it was your decision, he said with a smile. And she said, "I don't care. It's nowhere I'm going back there." And Jesus said, "But you endured it." And she says, "I'm not going back no matter what." Then Jesus took her to a council of beings that made her feel like extreme and great euphoria. So powerful that she then agreed to go back. Then there was another NDE I saw, very beautiful, super beautiful. And she said that it was so beautiful there and I could stay for as long as I wanted. But suddenly I started feeling a pull. And an angel told me I had to go back to fulfill a soul contract. And it was still that soul contract that had still had karma. So I guess you couldn't stay for as long as you wanted anyway, because you started to feel that pull. So we have to ask ourselves, could these beings that we see be tricksters? Could this be deception? Here is another pre-birth memory. I remember quite specifically and detailed the circumstances that led me to this life. The conversations and quiet moments leading to me being here. I remember I was tired and did not want to come back. Now I'm more tired and don't want to go. I don't remember where exactly, but I know I was somewhere before, like a door had been firmly shut, my memory of the other side erased. But I was clearly aware of the door. For a period of time as a child, I knew those things. I had to relearn and was frustrated about it. I was placed into this space with some sort of machine that my human brain, with my human understanding and experiences, rationalized to be a canon. Of course, it wasn't a canon, and it did not resemble one too much. However, I understood its function as something that, or my consciousness soul, had to step into to be thrown or shut into this life. It was not necessarily inside of any space or room, but more just kind of free-floating in a void of sorts. Before I was to step into this machine, I was directed to those from these objects placed before me, with several other children, or what I rationalized as children, but really they were just unincarnated souls like myself. So I looked through these oddly shaped objects, not spheres, as much as I can recall, but objects that my human brain cannot really fully comprehend, and I had to choose. I remember there being a sense of pressure behind the choosing process, like its importance was far beyond what I think I understood, but I could feel the weight of it. Then once I chose, I entered the machine, boom, existence.